Last time I gave an introduction to King David, which I want to just summarize and basically said, I want to say it was a lousy life that he had. He was the greatest king that we had. Not only the king, he was the dynasty of the Messianic dynasty. In other words, when Mashiach comes, Mashiach will come from David HaMelech. And yet, he had the worst and the hardest life. So we think all the time that Eov, had a rough life. And but if you look at David HaMelech, from his youth till his deathbed, it was rough. From his father not wanting to have anything to do with him, to his father-in-law wanting not to have anything to do with him, from making mistakes with Bathsheba, for having a son wanting to kill him, for having his own advisors wanting to kill him, plotting against him. On and on and on, he had it rough. So my question that I really like to start off with is, what made David HaMelech, what made him be the chosen one, that he took the throne of David? Not only he was the king of all kings, that all future kings till Mashiach will come from him, Mashiach, as we say, Mashiach ben David. Why did he merit this and no one else? And the answer is as follows. When King Saul, before David, who happened to have been King David's father-in-law, like I told you last week, when he was rebuked by Shmuel HaNavi, by Samuel the prophet, he went and he defended himself. He went on to defend himself. David HaMelech was not a perfect king. David HaMelech was a great tzaddik who put together the Tehillim, that we say his Tehillim, his gift that he gave us for already over 3,000 years. And yet, David HaMelech, what did David HaMelech do to actually merit to be the king of all kings and to have his Tehillim said so many years, so many generations later? And that is because when Nathan the prophet, Nathan HaNavi, went and rebuked King David for his mistakes, what was the difference between King Shaul, and King David? Shaul HaMelech, King Saul, he defended himself. When he was rebuked for his mistakes, for his sinning, he defended himself. When King David was rebuked by Nathan HaNavi, Nathan the prophet, David HaMelech said, Chatasi ovisi porshati, I was wrong. He admitted his mistake. Or I should say mistakes. He admitted that I'm not perfect. So interesting enough, King David taught us all a lesson. And the lesson is as follows. It says, Ein Adam asher yasa toiv v'lo yachta. There is no such a person that is perfect and he never sinned. Even Moshe Rabbeinu had sinned. Even Moshe Rabbeinu had sinned on his level. But the trick is, when a person is told, you have sinned, you did something wrong, not to defend himself like King Saul did. On the other hand, to David HaMelech, King David taught us, you don't have to be perfect. If God wanted you to be perfect, He would have created you as an angel. He would have created us as angels. Angels are perfect. Angels are programmed. They are perfect. Just us humans, we have flaws. We know we have mistakes. The trick is to admit it. To admit when we make a mistake. To admit when we're wrong. To admit that we have done something bad or wrong or a mistake. And to rectify it. And to have remorse. So today's class, I'd like to speak a drop on the power of Tehillim. And next week we will get into the first chapter of Tehillim. My dear friends, what is this Tehillim? What does it have in it that for over 3,000 years David HaMelech's Tehillim, David HaMelech's gift to Judaism has stuck with us throughout all these generations, throughout all this persecution. What is it about it that every single Jew, at a time of need, at a time of thanks, a kala under a chuppah is saying Tehillim. A chassan under his chuppah, a groom under his chuppah says Tehillim. At funerals, unfortunately, we say Tehillim. For good things, we want to thank God, we say Tehillim. For God forbid something wrong, we're in a problematic time, we say Tehillim. A plague, we say Tehillim. Why? Why is that? Because King David started his Tehillim when? At a time when he was chased away in his youth, chased away from his brothers, chased away from his mother, chased away from his father. His father wanted nothing to do with him. And yet David HaMelech got into Tehillim. And he said, no matter how bad it is, we still have to thank God. And that's what made him a great king also. That's what made him so close to God. And mind you, if you look at how you spell the word David, David HaMelech's name is 3 letters. Dalid, Vav, and a Dalid. Hebrew letter Dalid, a Vav, and a Dalid, which also is the name Dod. Dod in modern Hebrew means an uncle. But if you think of the word Dod, it also means my beloved. Where do we have Dod or Dodi, my beloved? We have it 2 famous times. One time is during the month of Elul, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, we say, Ani li dodi, I am to my beloved, v'dodi li, and my beloved is to me. So Dod is a beloved. We also say, Lecha dodi, likras kala, Lecha dodi, let's go, my beloved, likras kala, to meet the bride, the Shabbat. Lecha dodi. So Dod means David, comes from the word spelled the same way as Dod, my beloved, which shows how beloved King David was to God and how much love David, throughout all his problems, he still had a tremendous love for God himself. We know one thing, that many tzaddikim, many great people, contributed to Tehillim. They wrote some of the chapters of Tehillim. One of the people who wrote the chapters of Tehillim, there were 10, a matter of fact. One of the people who wrote the chapters of Tehillim is none other by King, no, not King, Father, no, not a father, but the first man ever created, Adam Arishan, Adam. Adam wrote Tehillim? Yes, Adam wrote, he said, a psalm of Tehillim. And if you have your Tehillim in front of you, you could look it up. It's Psalm 92. We say it every Shabbat, Friday night, and Shabbat day. Mizmor Shir Liyom HaShabbat. That was said by Adam Arishan on the day he was created. He was created Erev Shabbos, just a few hours before Shabbat, and he said the Psalm of Mizmor Shir Liyom HaShabbat. So Adam was one of them. He said 92. So now on Friday nights and on Shabbos, when we say Mizmor Shir Liyom HaShabbat, it'll mean much more to us also. Also, we have 3 sons of Korach. Korach was a wicked person, yet his sons, some of his kids, did tshuva, repented, and they wrote some of the Tehillim. Avram Avinu, Abraham, our patriarch, wrote some of the Tehillim. Shlomo HaMelech, David HaMelech. It's just David compiled everything together. And Tehillim has a power for every single situation in life. You could find a chapter of Tehillim. It is so great, the power of Tehillim, that the Tzemach Tzedek, the 3rd Lubavitcher Rebbe, once said, If people would know the power of Tehillim, they would be saying it an entire day. And that's why if you look at our morning prayers, as at our Shacharit prayers, at most of our prayers, it's mostly Tehillim. Ashrei is from Tehillim. All the Hallelujahs in the morning are from Tehillim. Shabbos morning is Tehillim. All the holidays are Tehillim. Everything is Tehillim. Most of our davening. Why? Because Tehillim has such a great power. Not only does it have such a great power, there was a great Kabbalist, the Chidah. The Chidah says that one who is accustomed to say Tehillim protects himself from all calamities. One who is accustomed and he's used to saying Tehillim every single day is protected from harmful events and harmful plagues and so on and so forth. That is the power of Tehillim. It's very interesting. Once in a supermarket, an old Russian lady was waiting in line. And the line was long to the cashier and she was waiting to pay. And she pulls out, while she's waiting in line, she pulls out this torn up Tehillim, old Tehillim. So the guy in back her said, Babichke, says, you must be carrying that wherever you go. And her comeback was, she turns around and says, no, it has been carrying me wherever I go. I'm alive today, she says, in my 90s because of this Tehillim. It carried me, I didn't carry it. So that is a beautiful saying. I will conclude with one story. Many years ago, in the Mir Yeshiva in Yerushalayim, there was a young man learning in that yeshiva. Unfortunately, he was an orphan. He didn't have a mother. He didn't have a father. They both unfortunately passed away. Didn't have too much money. And now it's time for shidduchim. He's of marriageable age. And he won't go out on a date because he hardly has money to pay for a date. Forget about for a wedding. Forget about for an engagement party. Forget about anything. So his friends got together and they said to him, you have to start going out and we will start collecting money that once you find the right girl and it works out, we will start collecting now for the wedding. And not all the time is it that easy to collect money. And he started going out and they went to people and they were collecting, but they didn't collect anything close to what a wedding would cost, even in Israel, which weddings are a lot cheaper than over here. And they couldn't raise all the money. And it so happens he started going out with another girl, one girl after another girl, and he went out with this girl and he liked her and she liked him. There was one problem. Believe it or not, she also had no parents. She also was an orphan. And here you have two orphans who have to get married, who are about to get engaged, who like each other. And the friends are coming over to them and say, we can't raise the money, it's just not coming in. We don't even have enough money to help with furniture. Forget about a wedding, forget about anything else. He set a date for the wedding. And he thought people would help out, and they didn't help out. No one was able to give as much as he needed. So one Erev Shabbos on a Friday, he goes to the wall, to the kotel, to the holy wall. And he puts himself by the wall and he says, I am going to complete the entire Tehillim. And that's the only one I can turn to now is God to say Tehillim. Because no one else is helping me. I have no one to turn to. Unfortunately, my friends, there are so many people who have no one else to turn to but to God. And he turns to God, he looks up and he says, Dear God, I am an orphan, my wife is an orphan, there's no one to help us. I'm turning to you because I can't go to anyone else. And he starts saying Tehillim. And it took him quite a few hours. And once he finished the first time Tehillim after a few hours out of Shabbos, he started the second time Tehillim. He looks up to the heavens again and he says, my dear God, you're the only one I can turn to. I have no one else to turn to. Please help us. And he starts saying Tehillim again. And again it took him a few hours. And it's already getting close to Shabbos. And he's crying full of tears. He doesn't have anyone to turn to. He finishes the second time Tehillim. He's about to start the third time Tehillim. And this guy comes over to him and says, Slicha, excuse me, in Hebrew, young man, what are you doing here? It's almost Shabbos. What are you crying about? It's almost Shabbos. Go, prepare yourself. He says, I'm not leaving here until God helps me. And he won't talk to the man anymore. He starts Tehillim again. He looks up at heaven and he says, God, you're the only one I can turn to. Please help me with my wedding. And he starts Tehillim again. And all of a sudden he feels a pat on the back. This man again. And the man says to the boy in Yiddish, it is Zaydach al geholfene, which means you're already helped. And the guy finishes the first chapter. This young man looks at this guy and says, what are you talking about? You don't even know me. He says, I just arrived this morning from America. I had a business and I got messed up and I had a lawsuit and I was about to lose tons and tons of money. And I made a deal with the Rebbeinu Shalom with God that if you, God, will help me in my lawsuit, I will fly to Israel and find a hachnosas kala, which hachnosas kala means I will help someone make a wedding. I'm going to make their whole wedding, someone who needs it badly. And I won my case. And a few days after I won my case, I came to Israel. I booked my flight. I came this morning. And look at this, my friend. I came to the hotel to thank Hashem for letting me win my case. And look who I find. I find you. Not only will I pay for your entire wedding, I will buy you an apartment. I will buy you furniture. I will put you on your feet. My friends, I heard this from someone who was heavily involved in arranging this entire wedding. This is the power of Tehillim. On my next class, next week, before I start the next chapter, I will go through one or two, not stories that happened that I heard from somebody who heard from somebody. I will tell you other stories about the power of Tehillim that I know personally, that I personally have been involved in, that I know the people personally. Wish everyone a wonderful week, a wonderful day, and if I can help anyone, if you need anything, please do not hesitate to call. Everyone have a great day and a great week. I'm sorry